Hey guys, Trevor here with eCommerce Paradise. Today I'm going to talk to you about the best business banks for setting up business checking accounts for your e-commerce business, whether it be high-ticket dropshipping or whatever else you're doing. So this is one of the biggest requirements for setting up any business, is to have a business checking account. You can't really use your personal checking account because it just doesn't have the flexibility that a business needs for many different types of transactions coming through all the time. Business checking gives you more flexibility, gives you more options, gives you more leverage, things like that. And it can also help build your business credit as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you in this video about the different requirements and stuff like that you'll need to set up a business checking account. I'm going to talk to you about the best banks and some options for people who are international or just people who are living abroad that are expats to set up business checking accounts in the USA. Okay, and this is specifically for doing business in the USA. Some of these things may apply to your own country, but this is specifically what USA banks require. So if you want to do business in the USA market, then you'll need to comply with these, and this is what I found. So without further ado, let's get into my computer screen where I'm going to show you some of the steps you got to take first, and then what the banks look like. Alright guys, so here we are in the computer screen, and what I'm going to show you now is the steps that you need to take first before you set up a business checking account, things you'll need, and then what are the different types of banks and other services available for you, okay? So first of all, a business checking account is required for an e-commerce store, okay? You're going to have a lot of different transactions going in and out of the business all the time, and you need to separate your business and personal finances so that come tax season, you can easily file your taxes, okay? Even if you're just a sole proprietor with a DBA. And if you don't know what DBA means, it means doing business as. Some states require it. Okay, you'll need to look up your particular state that you live in, if it requires it or not. And you can use Google to look stuff up. Okay, number two, in order to get a business checking account, you're going to need an EIN. EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. The IRS, Internal Revenue Service, issues this. You're going to need that whether you are a U.S. resident or if you are an international entrepreneur who wants to do business in the U.S. market. Okay, the process for getting an EIN is a little bit different. If you're international, you actually have to either call them on the phone or write them a letter. I believe you can call on the phone though, and you'll get an EIN number. Okay, but if you're a resident, you can apply online. Just Google that. Okay. Number three, if you have an LLC, which people do in order to protect their assets from, if they have personal assets, if you have personal assets like a house that has a lot of equity in it, or you have a lot of cash, or a brokerage account, somewhere where there's a lot of cash or equity, where if like someone sued your business, they could basically sue you for the entire your personal net worth, you would want to set up an LLC. It's the least expensive, easiest to form business entity that is legally separate from your personal liquidity, okay, your personal assets. So if you're that type of person that has assets to protect, I would definitely recommend setting up an LLC. Now it's different for every single state. An LLC is not a federal thing, an LLC is a state-based thing. So look up your particular state and what's required. Some states like California have high franchise tax fees and things like that for LLCs. So if you live in California, it might be a smart idea just to start with the sole proprietorship in the beginning, be really careful, and then when your business starts growing, then consider actually moving your physical residence to another state that doesn't have a state income tax and doesn't have a franchise tax. I recommend setting up a business in either like Florida or Wyoming because those two states have really easy formation, very low taxes, things like that. Okay. But you will need your formation documents and your operating agreement if you have an LLC to set up a business checking account at a bank. So, and also, of course, if your state requires a DBA, Wyoming, for instance, does not require a DBA, but California does. Other states do as well. If your state requires a DBA, you'll need to get one, and so you'll need to provide your EIN, your LLC formation document, your LLC operating agreement, and your DBA to the business banker. And you'll usually need to go apply in person in order to get that account. There are some services now that actually do this for you, which I'm going to talk about one of those examples here in this video. So now that you have an idea of what it takes to get a business checking and why you need to get one, let's talk about the best banks to go for. Okay, number one is Wells Fargo, and the reason why I recommend Wells Fargo is because I use them personally and I like them. They're really easy to work with, and but number two is because they actually operate in Wyoming. Okay, and Wyoming is where I have my business located because of the great privacy, low taxes. It's retail, and so I don't have to charge sales tax anywhere outside Wyoming, which is a very low volume state as far as orders for me. So that's great. So anyways, there's a lot of benefits to having a business in Wyoming. Now, if you live in another state that has an income tax or franchise tax, like California, for instance, it doesn't really make sense to set up an LLC in Wyoming because you're still going to have to file it as an out-of-state LLC in California and still pay your California taxes. But it might make sense if you do see in the future that you're going to move away from California to an income tax-free state like Washington or Florida or something like that, and you can maintain that Wyoming LLC. You can then shut down the California side of that, and then you can, of course, just kind of avoid paying the income taxes that you used to have to pay. All right, so keep that in mind, but Wells Fargo does operate in Wyoming. I used to use Chase for my business checking, so when I first got started, I used Chase because I was in California, and they offer checking in California. Chase is really great because they have branches all over the place, and they're just one of the best. But they don't offer Wyoming, okay? They just do not. It's weird. So you can't go with them if you have a Wyoming account or a Wyoming business. But Wells Fargo you can, and Bank of America also is good as well. I haven't used them myself for business checking. I've heard some people have issues with them. Again, it's just one of those things where if you're going to have issues with, you're going to have issues with any bank. So I think what Bank of America is fairly decent. They do offer Wyoming as well. So Wells Fargo and Bank of America are both great options for Wyoming. I personally use Wells Fargo, so I recommend them. They all have similar checking account options. When you look at the checking accounts, they'll all have like different levels, simple and then some advanced ones. And usually you just start with the simple one and you move up as your business grows and you have more transactions and things like that. Okay, they usually have some sort of a minimum to waive the fee, like a certain amount of transactions or minimum spend, that kind of stuff. Okay, and so just keep that in mind. Okay, those are the top 3 banks I recommend for USA businesses. Now, let's say you're international based, you're an entrepreneur that does not have a social security number, but you want to do business in the US. One of the options, instead of setting up an EIN and flying all the way out to the United States and going to the bank in person to set up a business checking account, which you can do and you should do if you are doing business, I would recommend that, which is to use a service like Transferwise. Transferwise can actually set you up with a business account and you'll be able to receive funds, deposit them, and then also move those funds to your personal checking account in your home country. And they have very low transfer rates, okay? So I highly recommend Transferwise for that. And I've heard some great feedback about that as well. I've actually used them internationally just to pay things like rent and other expenses abroad as well, since they work great and they have very low transfer rates, okay? Now, if you're international or you're just an expat that lives overseas that doesn't want to spend the money to go back to the States for whatever reason, you can use a thing like Stripe Atlas to actually start your entire business. It's pretty cool. Okay, they actually provide a startup business formation. So legal entity, you can even issue stock. But the main thing is you'll have like a Stripe account, which is what you usually use to process funds, and you'll get they'll file your LLC, they'll file your EIN, your tax ID basically, which is your EIN, and they'll even set you up with a business checking account, a bank account, okay? So I'm not exactly sure how it works because I haven't used this service myself, and I know it costs like I think $700 or something like that, so there's a fairly steep fee, but it does work, which is great. So I would recommend, $500 the setup fee. So I would recommend that at least you look into it if you are international based. It might save you a lot of time and money. The last thing is PayPal for business. Okay, PayPal offers a business account. It does not come with a checking or routing number. It's not like a regular checking account at the bank, but it is a payment processor. So you can accept payments. You can make payments through PayPal. And the cool thing about them too is that they can even give you a debit card. So the debit card you can use anywhere. They'll even give you cash back for using it, which is really cool. So anyway, definitely set up a business PayPal account. You'll be able to use that with your e-commerce store for accepting payments. A lot of people use PayPal to pay stuff, so that's great. And so yeah, those are the top banks I would recommend going with. And there's a lot more banks out there, but these are the ones that I've actually had experience with and use. And that's what you'll need to know. So pretty simple stuff. And just make sure you get this going for your business, and you'll be good to go. I hope that was really helpful to you and that you can go out and set up your business checking account now and get your business going now. Just keep in mind, always separate your business and personal finances. I have a separate video linked below to the best business credit cards you can use to pay your suppliers and vendors and software and services you'll use for an e-commerce business. I recommend that you use business credit cards for business transactions and personal credit cards for personal transactions, a business checking account for business incoming, outgoing, a personal checking account for personal incoming, outgoing, guys. I can't stress that enough. After 5, 10 plus years of doing e-commerce businesses myself, I've learned that it is very difficult to go through and file your taxes and stuff like that and have a bookkeeper do stuff when all your personal and business stuff is intermingled. All right, so make sure you do that and get that set up. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. All the reference links that I showed you today will be in the description of this video as well. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.